Welcome to the Lotco Business Podcast, a show all about helping you as a retailer, brand, or creative understand the actual business side of running your business. I offer straightforward, practical advice about the nitty-gritty of making money from your creative passion. We will be covering bite-sized business and marketing lessons, as well as interviews with experts and trailblazers in the fashion, homewares, and design industries. My name is Melissa Robbins. I'm a business coach, colour-loving, non-coffee drinking Melburnian. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome. My name is Melissa Robbins. Thank you for joining me today on the podcast. I have a special guest today, Clare Wood, who is a money mentor. She's a CPA, but not your average bean counter, and she uses her money-making mentoring powers for good. Clare empowers business owners to create their most profitable businesses and a lifestyle that lights them up. Thank you so much for being here today, Clare.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's so great to be here.
I have met you a number of times in person, and we've had a great connection, and I just love, as you know, we've already spent half an hour talking before we even started recording. So there's a lot to get through today, and you've got so much to share. So can you get started by just giving me a little bit of an intro about what sort of things you do with your clients and what you work on?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, the main thing I help my clients with is money. And like you said in the intro, I'm a CPA, so I'm actually a qualified accountant. And I help my clients to firstly look at their business finances and to really understand about profit, about cash flow, all of those things. And people say to me, one of my superpowers is that I explain it in a very easy to understand way. And I think that came because when I was at uni, the uni lecturers they spoke gobbledygook all the time. and I simplified it and I would say, do you mean this? And I've realized that a lot of times accountants use really big, overwhelming terms. So I've tried to really use plain English to explain things. And the other component of the way that I help people to grow their profit is through money mindset. And money mindset is things like how you think about money, your subconscious money beliefs, things like pricing, all of those fears and how they play out into the way that you show up in business, confidence, really helping people to navigate through those things so that they can grow their businesses.
Absolutely. This is such an important area, and I think you know that obviously I work with mainly product-based businesses, so those who have retail stores or their own brands and they're creating their own products. And one of the biggest issues that they start off with is pricing. And one of the biggest things I see is, people price for affordability. I want it to be affordable. I want it to bring this out because I think it should be this price in the market. And that's one of the first things that I work on with clients, because clearly, as we both know, you can't have a business if you don't have profit. And so understanding your pricing and how to structure it is crucial. Can you just touch on a little bit about, what you see, whether it's for products or service-based businesses, what you see about people, the way that they're, set their pricing, or how they start off with it?
Yeah, for sure. Look, one of the biggest things that I see when it comes to pricing, to your point, is people bringing their own stories or fears into it. And something that I say, it doesn't matter what you would pay for something. It matters what your dream client will pay for something. And I think that is really helpful to have in the back of your mind. And let me share an example of this. Boost juice is a $10 juice. And the other day I was at the shops with a friend of mine, and she said to my kids, do you want to have a Boost juice? And she goes, what's your favorite? And they said, we've never had a Boost juice before. And she looked at me like I was the worst mum in the world. And I said, to me, juice is just, it's a lot of calories, it's a lot of sugar.
Yeah,
and, there's 4 people in my family. To buy 4 Boost juices is $40. I could take my family out for dinner for that price. So my kids, she shouted them. My kids had their first Boost juice, and it just goes to show her kid has drank Boost juice so many times that, he couldn't believe that my kids didn't have a favorite, because he's obviously tried most of the menu. And the point that I'm trying to make from this is it's all about what we value. Can I afford a Boost juice? Absolutely, I can afford a Boost juice. Is it something that I value? No, it's not. And I think that this is the thing is at the end of the day, you are selling a value exchange. There are some things that I pay epically overpriced for. The first one that springs to mind is my shampoo and conditioner. I use Kerastase, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
It's $60 and $50. It's $110 for me to buy my shampoo and conditioner. I have tried over the years to move to a different brand numerous times, and I love this brand. My hair doesn't like it. I don't like it. And so I am happy to pay what I know is way more than I need to pay for shampoo and conditioner because it is something that I value. Other examples, are my skin products. Again, I'm sure I can wash my skin with products that are much cheaper. But since I've changed to this particular brand of skin products, Ultraceuticals, people compliment me on my skin all the time. And so therefore, it's something that I value. And this is the biggest thing that I always say to people with pricing is it's not about what you think it's worth. It's not about what's going on in the market. It's about your dream client. Do they value it at the price that you are pricing it? And again, when we think about, I'm a coach, I'm a high ticket coach. To work with me is, a really significant investment. And for some people, they're like, there's no way that I would pay that for that many hours of your time. For other people who, I've had clients of mine who've grown from sort of, 20, 30K months to 100K months. My fee pales in comparison to the fee that they pay me for coaching. And I'm not saying that it's all me. Of course, it's actually them. But the fact that they had that transformation, they can totally see the value in the investment. And this is, I guess, ultimately what pricing comes down to. It's what's the amount that feels good, feels aligned for you, and then what's the amount that your clients are going to be willing to pay. And so much of this is wrapped up in your marketing and your messaging. And of course, ultimately, exactly. And ultimately as well, like the thing that I say, there's the icing on the cake, which is, how your product's packaged and all of that. And then there's the actual cake. I used to work at Sheridan, the sheets and towels company was my last corporate role that I worked in. So I know product well. And yes, it's important how the product arrives in the packaging. But at the end of the day, if we had terrible sheets and terrible towels, the company would not be sustainable. Yeah. But we have an amazing product. Like Sheridan is a really high quality, amazing product. And the other stuff is bells and whistles, of course. And that is ultimately what I would say is that you have to have the quality product. Or if you were going for, do you know what? It's cheap crap. There's also a place in the market for that. So, you've just got to figure out your place in the market. Yeah.
And I think for product businesses, there's just that bare minimum, I would say, in terms of because you have a physical product, you've got cost of goods. And so you have to have that bare minimum margin, which I always say, between 60 and 80 depends on where you're selling and what you're doing. But, that's a starting point for where it can be from there. As long as you're, got that bare minimum, it can be higher than that and you can make more margin, but you have to have that bare minimum because you have a cost of goods for a physical product.
Absolutely.
And you would know from your accountant stage, like a lot of people put the bells and whistles, the marketing things into their cogs. And it's like, no, that should be your marketing expense. It shouldn't be in your cost of goods. So just making sure they put the things in the right place too is a super important, and I guess that's where I always say, speak to your accountant about which one is a cost of goods, which one is an expense, because not everything should be, in that first area.
Absolutely.
Now, when I saw you talk about the other day about, and you mentioned it briefly there before as well, about, your underlying beliefs about money, your background about money, your childhood stories about money, how does that shape our money mindset? Because I think some people know that this is the case and other people are like, what are you talking about? Like, this is all new to me, that they haven't really explored, much about money mindset yet and know how this can impact it.
Yeah. So basically your money mindset is how you think about money. And most of our thoughts, whether we know it or not, actually happen unconsciously without us even thinking about our thoughts. And let me share an example. We have deep rooted belief systems that have come from either our childhood or our experiences in our life, which impact the things that we do. So an example of this, a couple of years ago, I was in a major car accident. I've done a whole bunch of work, a whole bunch of healing around that. But yesterday, actually it was this morning, a car slammed on its brakes and I had this and instantly I grabbed the wheel. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I went back to that place of trauma that was in my brain, thinking that that thing was going to happen again. And this is what happens with traumas. Even, I mean, that's an example of a big trauma. A little trauma can be, you know, a comment that once a client went, oh, that's expensive. And your subconscious mind says, whoa, I put my prices up and someone commented that's expensive. They then didn't buy. And then our subconscious mind goes and creates a whole story around it, which is, they didn't buy. No one's going to buy at my new prices. My business is going to go under. I'm going to have to sell my house. I'm going to live on the street. Everyone's going to laugh at me. I'm
catastrophizing really there.
Exactly. And that's how primitive, when you understand a little bit about our brain is a primitive brain. You know, we were designed to live in caves and our brain is just trying to keep us safe. So anytime it sees a threat, it says, no, avoid, and tries really hard to keep us safe.
Yeah. Let's go back to what it was and let's keep it all simple and safe and don't change too much. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Absolutely. So is the first part of that and starting to recognize some of those beliefs that you may have or start to, you know, explore, I guess, what thoughts you've brought with you from childhood and what's the stories you've been told.
Yeah, so that's a really, really great starting point, is to understand, what do I actually believe? Because like I said, a lot of this isn't conscious. I never consciously thought, oh, I had a rough childhood and therefore I've got a ton of issues around money. The only reason I learned that is because I went and did this work to uncover, why does this scare me? What's this based on? Where's this belief come from? So the first step is really understanding, what do I believe about money? And not just on the surface. On the surface, people just go, I've got a great relationship with money, Claire. I don't have any issues with money. I go, great. And then I dig a little bit deeper and I'm like, there it is. So really doing that work, digging deeper, understanding, why do I feel the way that I feel about money or pricing? What are my fears about growth or investing in my business? And then where's that come from? And then once we sort of start to understand our beliefs, then we can start to reprogram them.
Yeah. And so I guess there's, you know, where do we even start with that? Like, what is something that is there a tool? Is there sort of some readings people can do? Like, what is there that people can get going on that?
Yeah, look, I wish that it was as simple as one straightforward thing. But like any trauma, you know, if you've ever had to work through something big in your life, you'll know. I remember the first time I went to see a therapist and I came out and my husband said, are you fixed yet? And then, you know, my next session, are you fixed yet? You'd always say that. You know, 3-4 years on now, I'm still going to regular therapy. Yeah. And I kind of say a bit the same with money. I mean, a great starting point is starting to really understand, like, what are my money stories? And I think journaling is a great way to do that. So a great starting point is to grab a journal and a piece of paper and write down, what are my beliefs about money? How do I feel about money? Yeah. And then see what comes up. And then go a bit deeper. Why do I feel like that? There's never enough money. Why do I feel like that? Because when we were little, we, you know, couldn't go on a holiday because we didn't have enough money and blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. And again, it's like an onion. We start to peel back the layers. There'll be some that's sitting quite close to the surface, But, I've been doing this work for, 6 years now. And I'm just constantly finding more and more stories, subconscious beliefs, and we just have to keep processing them and working through them.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think the journaling is such a great thing to get going and get started and really start to understand. As you say, like you've really got to ask deeper questions or push yourself to sort of, write more or let it free flow more and do it regularly because it's not going to happen, as you say, one session fixed, sorted it out.
Absolutely.
And so what do you see as some common money blocks that come up again and again for people?
Yeah. Okay. So I described there's 3 different kinds of money blocks. The first one is a block in receiving. So this is when you feel comfortable actually receiving money. And people think, why would I feel uncomfortable receiving money? But yet, I bet this has happened to most business owners. So an example of this might be you have your beautiful product and you are telling your cousin about it and your cousin says, oh, can I grab one? How much is it? And you say, oh, don't be silly, you can have it. Or you might say, oh, it's normally $100, but I'll give you mates rates, it's $50. And your cousin says, oh no, I'm happy to pay full price. I want to support you. And you're like, no, it's fine. Does that make sense? So
you're trying to a number of times there you've gone, no.
Exactly. It might be that you feel uncomfortable increasing your prices, as we mentioned earlier. You feel uncomfortable saying, hey, can I ask for more? And that is definitely one of the big blocks, is a block in receiving, feeling uncomfortable. And we can even see it play out in other ways in our lives as well. Like someone might say, oh, Mel, you look amazing today. And you go, oh, this old thing, you struggle to even receive a compliment. You feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, okay.
Receiving the compliment. So that's the first one. The next one is a block in holding. And a block in holding is when you feel uncomfortable actually hanging on to money. And this is one that definitely hit me hard in my mid-20s. I'd spent most of my life with no money. And then by the time I was 25, I was on $100,000 a year working as an accountant in the UK. And all of a sudden, all this money, it felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket. I did not put any money aside. I am so not used to having money. I need to spend it all because I'm probably not going to keep earning this much money. So I've just got to have fun and make hay while the sun shines. And I literally kept getting back down to zero. So that's a block in holding, is that we feel uncomfortable. Anytime there's like a bit of a buffer, it's like we've got to spunk it or get rid of it because we're so not used to having money. So that's block number 2. Did you want to ask a question about that or?
No. No, all good. Keep going. Okay, so block number that I love that.
Sorry, for the listeners, Mel kind of paused for a second there, and I thought, I wonder if she's got a question about that.
No, I think my Wi-Fi was just going funny. No, well, I do have a question in terms of what do you do to sort of try and understand that, I guess, or to work through it. But maybe we need to go to number 3 first, and then we'll talk about how. Let's go.
Sounds great. So number 3 is a block in investing or a block in spending. And so this is the opposite to block number 2. And this is where I see this equally with clients. I say, hey, why don't we hire an assistant to go and do that thing? Or why don't we hire an assistant to edit your podcast or whatever it might be? No, I'll just keep doing it myself. I'll just work till 1 a.m. again another day. And they're so scared to spend a single cent on their business. And then one day it might come up and I'll say, how much money have you got? And they'll go, I've got 100 in my business savings. And I'm like, you've got $100,000 sitting in your savings account and you won't pay an assistant to do a big chunky piece of work for you. And so that's the third block, is when our fear around money is that we don't want to spend any money. So we hang on to it, won't invest, and we're actually hamstringing or crippling our growth in the process of being scared to hire the coach, join the program, hire the team member, whatever it might be. So that's the third block.
Mm. And so, yeah, what are some things that we can do to, I guess, I mean, clearly this is all the stuff you work on for a long time with clients. It's not something you can tell us in 1 minute reply, but are there sort of certain things that people can focus on to sort of help them? Well, first of all, probably figure out which one they've got,
Yeah.
or if they've got all three of them,
Mm-hmm.
or where do they go from here?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think that's a really important point that you made there, Melissa, is that you don't just have one block. You might have a couple of blocks. I find for me that I've gone from that block to that block. I've gone from being scared to invest to spending all my money and being scared to hold. And I kind of find that I'm constantly noticing, whoa, okay, we're spending a lot at the moment. What's coming up that we're scared to hang on to any of it? I'm scared to put my prices up. What's going on there? So it's really uncovering the belief as a starting point is a great place to start. And then the next thing is really in clearing that trauma and working through it. And a big part of any sort of work in this space is facing that fear. So this is one of the things that I do is that I'm kind of, I don't like the word pushing, but encouraging people to kind of do the uncomfortable thing. And maybe you don't feel like, doubling your prices overnight, but I'm like, hey, what would happen if we put them up 5%? Do you feel comfortable with that? Yeah, okay, great, let's do that. And allowing people, it's almost this thing in therapy, it's called exposure therapy, where it's like you do a little bit of something and you go, oh, I survived that. That was actually okay. Yeah. And then you try a little bit more. So I think that just doing the thing that makes you feel uncomfortable is also a really, really great way. So in the space of holding, when I was really, really struggling to hold on to money, I started a direct debit. I think it was like either $5 or $10 a week. Like it was not a big amount of money, but it was like that money is savings money.
Yeah, it's going somewhere else.
Debit transfer is set up. Yeah, I don't touch it. And just learning to get comfortable with the concept of, do you know what? You don't have to spend every single cent that you ever earn.
Yeah.
So
you don't have to get down to zero, and you don't want to. Yeah,
exactly. So kind of just starting to go, okay, and what are the steps? And I think that this is important. Your beliefs that's the foundation. Like that's where a lot of the work sits. But the next step is absolutely action. You can't sit on a mountain being like, I'm okay to receive money, and then not put your prices up or not advertise your product because you're embarrassed to put your thing out there, which is another part of the receiving block. People just don't tell anyone about it. I've got this amazing widget over here. Yeah. Have you told anyone about it? You can have the best product in the world. That's not going to sell if you're not getting out there. And that ultimately comes back to a block in receiving as well. You're scared to actually
scared to what other people will think, or if other people judge the pricing and stuff like that too. I mean, this is something I work on a lot with my clients in terms of it's the basis of lots of my programs. I always start with pricing and really getting through that because clearly that's a big part of having a profitable business. And lots of people who have put up their pricing, if that was required, they've said, no one noticed. I thought it was going to be this huge thing and no one second guessed it. I sold more at the next market and it was no big deal. And they're like, I can't believe it, Mel, this is what's happened. And, it's just there's a lot to work through and a lot of people have to work through it. And again, I start with mindset in pricing when my first part of my program too. And I guess that's a thing. It's like knowing where it should be, but is it you that the reason it's not going up, or is it the market, or all sorts of things? And just on that as well, I think figuring out which one it is, I think part of that as well is also not being afraid to look at your numbers and know your numbers and really figure out what's happening inside your business, because otherwise you don't know which one of those blocks you've got, or you don't really even, as you say, like occasionally you'll go and look in and go, oh, I think why am I spending that much on those things? Or I know that's one of the things that you work on with clients, like, or I've learned from you, go in and just review all your expenses, go in and check all the things that are going on. And it's not because you want to stop people spending money, but you want to be consciously or intentionally spending as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's one thing leading into that as well is your book. So obviously it's called Intentional Profit because, you're not trying to show people or tell people that they shouldn't spend money and that they should be tight and hold on to everything. It's about how can you intentionally build your business so that it is profitable, but doing it in a way that you enjoy it and you're not staying up till 1 a.m. or whatever it might be inside.
Yeah. And I think that a big part of that is sometimes you've got to spend money to make money, and empowering people to connect the investments back to their sales growth. Because I think that a lot of people hamstring their growth because they're scared to take that next step. And I talk again in the book about what should you be investing in and when, because there's always so many things competing for our dollars that we can be spending money on at any point in time. So trying to figure out what's right for you at any one point in time. You know, should you hire an assistant? Should you hire, get the work warehouse? Should you get a new website? Do you need to spend money on Facebook ads? You've got to figure out what's right for you and your business and your audience, because ultimately you should know them better than anyone else knows your business.
Yeah. And just really starting to, and I guess that's where you're sort of coming back to, as you say, like what's giving you a return, or what's giving you more time to then allow you to work on more money-making activities, or what's giving you an easier, more enjoyable work balance or life, so that you're not everything's tied up in the business and that you have to do everything inside it.
Yeah. And using the numbers to support that, because I did have a client of mine once, and she was actually paying her assistant more than she was paying herself in profit. Yeah. She felt all this freedom. She said, I don't know how I'd survive without this person. I'm like, but she's making more money than you. It's all right to do that for a short period of time, but if you're paying your admin person more money than you're paying yourself over a long period of time, that is a bit of a worry. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's where really not being afraid to understand what's going on inside the business, not being afraid to do those reports or check what's happening. And you're going to go through, especially as a product business, ups and downs in terms of seasonality of sales. You're going to have to buy your product and, reinvest back into stock all the time. So it's not always going to be your perfect, situation, but knowing that over a long term as well is really important to track trends and stuff too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Know your numbers to grow your numbers.
Yeah. I love it. And that's the thing. Someone said to me the other day, I know now that June and July is going to be quiet, and I had a retail store, and I still would, get to those points where it was much quieter in the months. I'll be like, and I'll be like, no, this is normal. This is expected. This is what it's normally like. It's not me. I'm not freaking out, which clearly retail can be very up and down. But being able to, once you've been in it for a little while, being able to put money aside or, understand what your break even is so that you can allocate money in the peak months as opposed to struggle, like doing the same thing every month.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, love that.
Yeah. And what are some of the big lessons that you've learned in your time as a business owner or entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh, how long have you got? This might turn into a therapy session.
Well, I know you've had some big breakthroughs or, some things go wrong at times. So, definitely anything you can share here.
Look, I think a couple of things. Firstly, when I started my business, I was a massive tight ass. I did not spend money on anything. I built my own website. I'm an accountant by trade. And I think now I wish that I had invested more in the long-term, focused on the long-term growth in the early stages. Yes. And I get it. I was trying to survive. I did what I could at that, with limited resources at the time. But I look at my peers who, had the beautiful website, started the podcast, were showing up on social media all the time then. I wasn't. I was too scared. I did not have the confidence to do that. And I've really stepped into my own the last couple of years in this space of visibility, of marketing, of really owning my space. And I really wish that I'd done that earlier. And I think a big part of that has been my own healing self-love journey. And that is something that I think any business owner cannot underestimate, is look after the owner, look after yourself, and learn to love yourself, because you are going to have so many experiences where the haters come at you. People have negative things to say. There's a Reddit thread about you or your product, or a bad Google review, and you cannot crumble in a heap and shut down your business when these things happen. And I think the first, the first couple of times I failed, I remember my first failed launch, I sat on my couch sobbing for days. It was like someone had died. I was in such a bad headspace. And now I've learned, you know what? Tough times are a part of business. And when I have things that don't go to plan now, I'm like, well, that sucks. What's the lesson I've learned? Okay, let's move on. I am not spending my days sitting sobbing on a couch. So I had a hater situation the other day, and one of my friends is like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to tell you this. And I kind of had a laugh, and she's like, how are you laughing at this? And I'm like, it doesn't bother me. Like, they're obviously jealous or triggered or whatever it might be. And it's water off a duck's back to me. And I think that has been one of the best things I've done, is like learn to love myself, be confident in myself. And I think that it's just made me a lot more resilient as a business owner, understanding that, with the ups come the downs. And I remember that I heard, you can't have, I think that James Wedmore actually says this, you can't have the things without having the other things. You can't have a beautiful, loving relationship without risking getting your heart broken. You can't have, the joy that comes from having having kids without all of the crap that comes with it. And it's kind of the same with a business. Yeah. You don't get to have a massive, big, visible brand without having the backlash and the feedback.
One of his roadmaps, like sort of milestones, is getting a hater. Like, you're putting yourself out there. That means that people are seeing it. So it's like, celebrate that you've actually got someone that's, you're visible enough that that's going to come. So like,
Absolutely.
That's okay. Just roll with it.
Like I always try and think, I'm like, who's the most neutral person I know? I think of Princess Kate, and how can anyone hate her? Like, she's very, she's not controversial. She's just lovely and nice. I guarantee you there will be entire Facebook communities of people who freaking hate her. Like, I guarantee it. And you think, if people can hate on Kate, they're going to dislike you. You can have the best product. People hate the most recognizable, lovable brands in the world. There are people that hate Apple. There are people that hate Tesla. There are people that hate Amazon, and, any huge, big global brand, people hate. And I think that that's the thing, when you just recognize this is part of growth, it's going to happen. Equally, economic upturns, downturns, it is part of business. It is going to happen. And when when it's happening, instead of being like, oh, woe is me, the world's over, you're like, okay, this is what's going on. It's a normal part of business. But importantly, what am I going to do to navigate through this time?
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing. Like, what can you control? And you can control how much you show up, how much you deliver to people in terms of, go above and beyond, how much you know your numbers, if you're profitable or not. Like, you can control those things. So that's the sort of things to focus on, as opposed to, external environment that you can't do much about. But slower times in business are a great time to really assess what is working, what's not. Refine things as well if you're not as busy, doing other things in your business.
Exactly. Yeah, love that.
Yeah. And one thing just there I just remembered I was going to say was, I think I've had it on my Instagram before, like, you don't like everybody, so why, don't expect everybody to like you. Like, it's okay. That's okay. And your product's not for everybody either. So you don't need every single person in the world to love your product. You only need a snippet, little tiny slice of, the huge abundance amount of customers out there. So you don't need the whole marketplace.
Exactly. Love that.
Yeah. And there's competitors in everything, and that's okay. Like owning that and celebrating, people doing their own thing, because everyone is different. Everyone's bringing different things. Everyone is going to relate to the energy or the person behind the products or behind the business differently to other people. So you can't be anyone but you. So don't even try to be, I guess, is the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so much to share, Claire. I think one of the things I wanted to ask you about was what is the, entry point for people to work with you? Like, what is one of the first things that people start off working with you doing in your world?
Look, my book is the reason I wrote my book was because I remember at one point in time, it actually started because I had a potential client reach out to me. And at the time, I think the cheapest way you could work with me was like a couple of $1,000. And they said, don't you have any other way that I can work with you? And so that's what that was the start of writing my book. It's $29.95. It's at a very accessible price point. You can get a feel for me, my vibe. And even if you never do anything more with me, you can learn the basics of business finance and learn a bit about mindset, learn a bit about my own journey and things like that. So that's a really great starting point. And then from there, I have a couple of courses. And then, of course, I've got my high ticket offerings like my retreats and my VIP days and my one-on-one coaching. So there's quite a few ways that you can work with me. But I think the book is a really great place to start. It's called Intentional Profit. And, you can grab it on my website, which is just clarewood.com, CLARE wood.com, or on Amazon or Booktopia, or all the big players have it.
Amazing. And obviously you've got a podcast. You were just saying to me as well that you're up to 279 or 95 episodes or something.
Yes, exactly.
That is epic. So there's so much to consume there. I think I've listened to almost all of those as well. And there's the book, as you say, it's an easy read. Like it's such a it's so insightful, all the thin little stories in there that you tell as well, which makes it really great. And then, your podcast, you've got lots to share on there, so people can find you. It's just Clare Wood Podcast, is it?
Yeah, the Clare Wood Podcast. I'm not very creative like that.
Well, neither am I, don't worry. So it makes it easy to find you. So
exactly.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. There's a lot to take in, and I know that, it might bring up a few things for people of, okay, maybe I do have that money block too. Maybe that's something I need to work on. I could explore my story a little bit more too by, hearing some of your insights. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, we sure will.
Okay. Thanks, Claire. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Lotco Business Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe to receive future episodes as they are released. And I'd be so grateful for a review on Apple Podcast. If you would like a copy of the show notes or any of the links mentioned today, please jump onto my website at thelotco.com.au/podcast. Have an amazing week, and I look forward to chatting to you again soon.